Hi everybody, and welcome back to this little bite-sized Thrive with me, Kim Forrester. It's so great to have you here. How are you doing? This week I wanted to talk about resilience, and that is because this week I had some wonderful, meaningful plans set up for myself. I was all ready to go and very excited about my plans for the week, and then COVID-19 did its thing and we entered lockdown and all my plans have gone out the window, and immediately I felt my body go into this sense of tenseness and distress and distress and I immediately sort of started engaging in my resilience practices and really consciously trying to unwind that sense of stress within me so that I can not only cope with the coming week, but actually thrive in the week ahead. So resilience it is. About 2 years ago, the second episode I ever made of the Eudaimonia podcast, I interviewed Stuart Taylor from Springfox, Australia. Springfox used to be known as the Resilience Institute, and Stuart is a resilience expert. The audio is absolutely shocking because it was one of my first episodes. But if you are looking for a bit of inspiration and a bit of education about resilience and how and why it's good for us, then I do encourage you to go right back to the beginning of the Eudaimonia podcast episodes and listen to Stuart Taylor talk about resilience. I'm going to be sharing a little bit of his wisdom in the coming week. One of the comments that he made that I have found really, really valuable, and that certainly I have been living through and growing through over the past few months, it was a comment around our myth that we are somehow in control in our lives and in our societies. And when you think about it, when you think about the way that we run our modern world, there is this inherent assumption that somehow we are supposed to be able to control our environment and all the elements of our lives. You know, we sort of have this myth that we give our young ones that, look, if you get this exam, this score in this exam and go to this university, then your career will be amazing. Or if you pull all the right levers and say all the right things, then you should get that sales job, you know, or build that business. That is what we are sort of led to believe, that somehow we have the power to control all the elements and all the people and all of the situations in our world and in our lives. And really that's just not true. I also want to point out that that sense of control, that assumption that somehow we are in charge of all the elements can sort of filter through into some spiritual philosophies. And in particular, that sort of idea of manifestation, law of attraction. Now, if you are able to manifest everything in your life all the time, then you are freaking wonderful and amazing, and I celebrate you. I have to be really, really careful with that particular philosophy, because if and when something doesn't come into my life the way that I have asked for it or tried to manifest it, then immediately I can find myself going into self-recrimination, self-judgment, because I start believing that, well, I didn't control my mind properly. I didn't control my thoughts. It was obviously me not controlling my intent. So you can see how that sense of us being supposed to be able to control all the elements can also filter into spiritual philosophies as well. It's something I think we should all be a little aware of. Stuart Taylor mentioned the Buddhist viewpoint, and there are other Eastern spiritual philosophies that follow this viewpoint as well, in that he says control, Buddha teaches, control is just an illusion. None of us are ever in control, and this is just, we are deluded to think that we are. And in these philosophies, our bliss, our enlightenment, our sense of happiness and well-being comes when we learn to detach from all outcomes and detach from all desires. And it's in that detachment that life comes to us and we accept whatever comes to us. Now, that is a beautiful philosophy. I simply do not have a consciousness that is high enough to even attain that kind of detachment in my life. So I want to share with you today what I have learned over the past few months, and something that I have found really, really powerful in my striving to be well, in my striving to be more resilient. And that is the balance of controlling what I can control, what I am in charge of, and the acceptance and surrender for those many, many elements that I cannot control. So, for instance, Today, it all fell apart. All of my plans went out the window. There was a lot of stress and uncertainty coming up around this latest lockdown. I realized immediately I cannot control the decisions that are being made by the government. I cannot control where COVID is running rampant through the community. I cannot control lockdown. I therefore sort of have very little control over my plans. The plans that I had, I've lost control of. What I can take charge of, what I can control, is my response to the situation. And like I say, I immediately felt the tenseness. I felt the stress. In my back, I started getting dizzy from low blood pressure. And so I took control of my own well-being. And I immediately became more mindful, and I immediately took myself off and had a nice relaxing bath with some soothing music, and I'm making sure that I'm drinking lots of water and I'm eating nutritious food today, so that sure, everything is up in the air and I'm going to feel stressed and distressed about that, but I am also controlling the way that I take care of myself so that I am better able to cope and endure and rise above the current challenges. So I think that's a really, really important of my well-being journey, and I wanted to share that with you today. It's an important part of resilience, learning to focus on those things, only those things that we can actually control. Because as I have learned for many, many years, when we are trying to control all the elements, we're just wasting our time and our energy and our well-being and our resources. We are wasting so much of our inner strength and empowerment and happiness trying to control stuff that we're never, ever, ever going to be able to control. Bring it back to what you can control, boost that well-being from the inside out, and all of a sudden your mind becomes clearer. The solutions that you're looking for become easier to find, right? And you can regain a sense of equilibrium even when the world around you is tossing and turning. That is literally why I'm creating these bite-sized thrives, because regardless of what's going on out there, we can each control the way and take charge of the way that we nourish and nurture ourselves. Over the coming days, I'm going to be doing this, and please, I do invite you to join me in asking the question often, right, throughout the day. What can I control in this moment? What do I have charge over in this situation? And focusing your energy and your intent and your time and your focus only on those elements, and everything else surrender to. Now that's not easy, okay? Accepting that there are things out there that you can't control is not easy. I had to do it myself today, and it felt scary and really discomforting. But I also know it's the best thing for me to endure and to overcome the current challenges. What are the elements I can control, and how do I take charge of them right here, right now? I'll see you in a couple of days' time. That was your little bite-sized thrive. Ta-da!